Hello, it's me. I am the lady. Join me for the couch and the culture. Hey, clients, welcome to the couch and the culture, where therapy meets what's trending. If you've ever watched your favorite shows and thought to yourself, I wonder if they see the lady. Maybe you're curious about some of the behaviors that they have, you feel seen, you feel triggered, this is the video for you. Join me as I share my perspectives as the lady. Well, one of the ladies. I'm Lakia and I'm a licensed clinical social worker with about a decade of experience. I'm a millennial. I love all things pop culture, sports, entertainment, music. So I'll fuse those things together to help you learn new insights and gain tips and skills that hopefully you'll be able to grow from as you spend time with me on the couch. Now, before we get into things, there's a few disclaimers we need to be able to discuss. Number one, these videos are intended to be educational, but they are not a substitute for your personal therapy. As much as I want you to share these videos in your group text, on your social medias, what I don't want is for you guys to watch a video and be like, my therapist said, keep me up out of that. Keep me out of that. Everyone deserves to have their own one-on-one time with their personal therapist. So please do not use these videos as a substitute for that. Instead, think of them as an addition to, or maybe just almost like a launching point for you to start your own journey. Number two, the things that I share are not the views of any past or present employees, not the views of my sorority or any organizations I may be affiliated with, not the views of any of the universities I've attended. I am only speaking on my behalf. That is it. Number three, while I've quite literally mastered the English language, I've got my degrees. This space is not where we have to worry about subject-verb agreement. It is just for us to have a casual conversation for the culture and just be able to be unfiltered. So please suspend any judgment you may have about that. I really want to be able to be raw and unfiltered with you guys and just talk as I would if I were talking to some of my friends. Now that that's out of the way, let's transition to today's main topic. Now, when I was envisioning making these videos, there were a lot of things I thought that we would pull from, especially for our first video, to really hook the people in. I considered several viral social media and podcast moments. I thought about some reality things from Love is Blind or Love Island. Even some material from some of my favorite scripted shows like The Shy, Unreasonable Doubt, Ginny and Georgia, and The Summer I Turned Pretty. If you know, you know. Really Team Belly. We not either Jeremiah or Conrad. But trust me, we will have time to get into all of those things. But there was something else that just felt more relevant and appropriate for us to start this series off with. So, in full transparency, I really debated long and hard about this. And in moments, I found myself like J. Cole on Friday Night Lights when he said, "Man, is this too deep for the intro? If so, I'll find another use. But just in case it's perfect, let me introduce." And I decided it really was perfect. There's really no one moment for us to be able to have this particular discussion. So we're just gonna dive right into it. But I want to be gentle with how I approach this and give another disclaimer. Today's topic may be hard for some people to hear about and to discuss. We will be talking about unaliving. So if this is something that's going to be difficult for you to be a part of, please proceed at your own pace. Take care of yourself. Acknowledge where you are in this moment, and do what you need to do for you. As much as I would love to have you join in on the couch right now, I fully respect if maybe this isn't the appropriate time for you. Now, as I said, we're going to be talking about unaliving, which brings me to yet another disclaimer. Another one in my Khaled voice, or for my friends who may say another one. But again, I remember watching the YSL trial over the summer through my girl I'm Not a Lawyer But, and I remember when unaliving was used on trial and me saying like, okay, we have gone full-blown social media in the courtroom. And I kind of cringed a little bit hearing that term be used. And so if that's where you are thinking like, why is this therapist saying unalive? Trust me, I've considered whether it would be further stigmatizing not to use the actual S word versus saying unaliving. But in weighing the potential risk and benefits of people not having access to this discussion because it gets flagged or taken down, versus us all just kind of knowing what it is I'm talking about, I ultimately decided to go with unaliving. But again, I'm right there with you, and I want us to be able to have a direct conversation about this. So I had to interrupt this episode to acknowledge Veterans Day. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about mental health and veterans and the connection between the topic for today. So we often thank them for their service on this day, but we don't really talk with them about some of the pain they may be experiencing. So according to the VA's 2024 National Suicide Prevention report that came out, as of 2022, approximately 17.6 veterans unalive themselves per day. That's a classroom size in some places, and about 18 souls every day who don't see this fight through. So having said that, if you are a veteran who may be struggling, or you know a veteran who may be struggling, please contact 988 option 1 for the veteran support line, and get connected to someone who may be able to help you, because you should not have to face this alone. You've given so much to this country. The least we can do is help you try and find peace again. So thank you for listening to this message. Share it with whoever needs to hear it. And now back to our regularly scheduled program on The Couch and the Culture. All right, so moving right along and really getting into the nitty-gritty of the video. I had a completely different topic planned for us to cover today, but just thinking about some feelings that I had over the course of the week, that felt very reminiscent of how I felt in 2022 when I heard about Chesley Chris, who was, I think I may be saying that wrong, Chesley Chris, who was a former Miss USA winner. She was a correspondent in the entertainment industry, had her law degree, just seemed to be this bright, beautiful, bubbly personality. But when I learned that she unalived herself in 2022, it felt super duper impactful at the moment, and I remember just how shook I was to hear that. And I had very similar feelings this week to learn that 24-year-old Marshawn Nealon, also a Black professional athlete, took his own life only days after scoring his first touchdown in the NFL. So we have these two people who probably work their entire lives towards these goals, who seem to be at the peak of their professional careers, who unfortunately did not finish life in the way they probably imagined. I also thought about Kyron Lacey, another 24-year-old athlete, Black athlete, who also recently unalived himself. And just in processing these young, beautiful, talented Black people, it was hard for me to know that this was happening, to feel these emotions and not feel like this was more urgent of a topic to cover on this first episode. So in working in behavioral health over the last 10 years, I've heard so many reasons why people may hesitate to talk about these experiences, or why those who maybe don't know how to show up for their loved ones who may be experiencing these things. I thought it may be important to really try and speak to both demographics, although I fully realize that sometimes there's overlap. Maybe you've previously had those types of thoughts and feelings, and also struggle with supporting other people who may experience those things. So yeah, I wanted to take this time to speak directly to those two things. So first, to those who may be suffering, please know you're not alone in this fight. Your life has purpose, even when you're struggling to identify what that purpose is yourself. Please know that hopefully with time, things get better, or at a minimum less bad. So if you've got someone that you trust, whether it's a therapist, a coach, a family member, a friend, please lean on them in those moments where it feels like you're too weak to be able to stand on your own in those moments. Or maybe you just feel completely isolated. You don't feel like you really have a support system or anyone that you can contact or talk with about this. And if that is the case, I would encourage you to contact 988 or text the confidential crisis text line at 741-741. In moments where you feel super overwhelmed, just take it second by second. Really get back to the basics and look at all of the small things as wins that will really build on each other over time. So whether it's just getting your feet to touch the floor out of bed for the first time, whether it's completing your hygiene, letting the sun hit your face, having a meal for the first time, all of those things really do add up. So just keep taking those things and looking at it as small wins on the path to your recovery and getting to a better place. A lot of times we have this idea of, you know, being strong means that you're silent, you handle things without complaint, without really speaking up. And I don't want us to keep that thought, that message alive. This idea of being the strong black woman, or having to man up, or in the military kind of soldiering on. It is okay to say, I'm not okay. It is okay to ask for help in whatever form that looks like. Please speak up. Again, being strong does not mean being silent. One of the strongest things that you can do is recognize your resources and tap into them. We were not created to survive in isolation. A lot of times we'll hear this thought that the opposite of depression is actually connection. Meaningful, sincere connection, but we really shouldn't be going at this alone. I feel like oftentimes we also get told, or we kind of remember hearing, like, God only gives his toughest battles to his strongest warriors. And I'm sure you probably rolled your eyes and said it with me because you've heard it. And you've also probably said, now, when did I enlist? And if that's the case, I do encourage you to enlist. Enlist the support of others, of those you trust. Again, the entire point of all of this is to find connection and support so that this feels more bearable, more tolerable. If you're watching this video and this seems so relevant to you, recognize that you've already survived 100% of your hardest day. So trust those odds and keep trying to give it your best effort. And hopefully over time, you'll find the strength and the purpose to keep going. Oftentimes when someone's fight is over, you'll hear people say, like, oh man, this is why we gotta check on our friends, or check on your strong friends. But maybe we're not really sure how to do that. Maybe we're worried about, like, what if I say the wrong thing, or I don't know what to say, or, you know, what if this triggers me? That's okay, but I want to give some advice on maybe how we can practically show up for the people we do care about. One of the best things that we can do is not wait for the crisis to happen to ask the appropriate questions. So even when everything's good, I can ask my friends, hey, in moments where you're having a hard time, what is it that you need to hear from me? What's going to help? What doesn't help? How will you ask for help? Will it be something that you just say directly, or is it some other signal or cue that'll let me know that you're struggling and what you would like for me to do in those moments? And how will I know that you're feeling better? One of the things I love about two of my friends, shout out Ashley and Amber, anytime that we have big conversations with each other, whether it's sharing our goals, sharing concerns, inevitably someone always asks, how can I best show up for you in this moment? And it's a similar thought, right? In the same way that someone who has a chronic medical condition, whether it is allergies, it is diabetes, we know in advance what to do when they face that medical crisis. If only we could give that same thought and intentionality to our mental health. So I encourage you guys, kind of build your own manual or social support guide with your people so that this gets easier to navigate when they are in crisis. Now, the other thing, if they're already in crisis, acknowledge that maybe you don't know what to say. Acknowledge that maybe you can't fix it. Likely you can't. And don't put the pressure on yourself to be able to do so. Ask them, can I join you in this moment? Whether it's emotionally, it's physically, even if it's just in silence. I'm not expecting anything out of this. I just want to be present with you. Can I take something off of their plate? Whether it's driving them to do something, getting groceries for them, making a meal for them. Can I do those things that maybe feels exponentially harder in the moments where they're struggling? Also, really important, listen to whatever it is that they are willing to share. Empathize with them. Don't push their boundaries. We don't need to minimize or make it about us to say that, oh, that would be such a selfish thing if you did it. We don't need to say, oh, that's a permanent solution to a temporary problem. We don't need to suggest that, we've gone through worse before. We don't want to do those things. We need to really listen and respect their boundaries. If there's someone who maybe has a certain spiritual preference, send them affirmations, scriptures, whatever it would be that they would recognize as something they find comfort in. If it's an activity that that they really enjoyed before, offer to do that with them, whether it is going for a walk, playing a video game that maybe you don't enjoy but it would be meaningful to them. Try and really engage with them on a level that they would recognize and see as helpful. And if all else fails, you always can prompt them, if they have their therapist already, to ask them, have you reached out? When's the last time you spoke to the lady? Or if they're not connected with someone, offering to help find someone that you can contact with them together. I also want to get into a few common things I've heard over the years with people who may be trying to support their loved ones who may be struggling with their mental health. A lot of times I'll have parents say, well, I don't want to directly ask because if I ask the question, it's like I'm putting it into their mind and I don't want them to act on something that they only thought about because I said something. I cannot stress enough how often I hear from my teens. They want to be asked those questions. Obviously, when it's not like a crowded room, but they want to be asked those questions because in many ways, it's like you're sowing little seeds. They realize like, oh, if the answer does become yes, this is someone I can talk to about this. And before, maybe I thought this topic was off limits. So please ask the question directly. If we're doing it with good intention and we're leading with love and empathy, that's the best we can do, and just hope for a good outcome. There's also this belief that, well, they'll tell me if they really want me to know. They'll share what they want me to know. And that's not always the case. Sometimes there's maybe concern for judgment, there's embarrassment, there's shame. Maybe I don't know what to say or how to ask if the person's going to be overwhelmed by my response. And so they just won't do it. So please don't just assume if they're not telling me this and volunteering this information, everything must be okay. It's okay. We can normalize having these types of discussions with our loved ones. Show up with your listening ears, have that empathy, respect their boundaries. Don't minimize it with these kind of cliche things we've heard over time, and just offer to be there in whatever way you can. I hope that if you stayed through for the completion of this video, that you took something away from it and that you feel compelled to share it in your group texts, in your social media platforms, because I assure you there's someone who probably needs to hear this message, even if it's just one person it touches. I cannot stress enough how impactful that could be. So I really appreciate you guys for sticking through this with me. In future episodes, I hope for us to be able to talk about some of the more trending topics that are happening across all platforms. So thank you for joining me today. We came in with a song. I'd like to leave us with a song. Please check out It Gets Better with Time by The Internet if you're not familiar with it, and let that just be a gentle reminder and moments where we need that little bit of hope. So thank you for joining me on The Couch and the Culture, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye, clients.